everybody. This is Laura, City Scrapper. Thank you so much for joining me today. Today, I'm making a layout for a Punched Out Thursday to Die For, and also for day 10 of Christy's Beautiful Life 30 Days of Sketches. Today's sketch is labeled Lizavetta's Sketch, and the Dotty About Flair prompt is circles. I started the layout by using my tried and true Creative Memory circle cutters. I used all three cutters and I cut three different size circles to match the sketch that has three circles. I'm using the 49 and Market Vintage Artistry Blush Collection. The 49 and Market papers are very thick, so I had to work a little harder to get those circles cut out properly. I made a mistake when I was cutting out that smallest circle, and I wasn't worried about it because, as you can see right now, I am cutting that part of the circle off. All of the circles are going to get trimmed down, but I didn't want to create half circles because I wasn't sure where I wanted to cut them. Now that I have them laid out on the page, I'm deciding how big to make them, and I do end up trimming off some of the circles later on as well. I'm going to use some punches to make some embellishments for the page. I'm using 2 star punches, and those are made by a company called Family Treasures. They are similar in size so that I can layer them on top of each other. I'm using the other side of the pattern paper that I cut the circles out of. This is kind of a bonus piece of paper that's in the front of the pack. On one side, it's a pattern paper, and on the other side, it shows you everything that's in the collection. And I used some of the pink side and some of the side that demonstrates all the pages that are included in the kit. I used this Fiskars punch to cut out a ticket shape, and I cut out 2 tickets, one in a dark color, one in a light color, so that I could layer them. I also use 2 arrow punches. The smaller arrows are made with a Fiskars punch, and the larger one is made with a punch by the Paper Studio. I inked the edges of all of these elements that I've cut out using some Distress Oxide in Picked Raspberry. Picked Raspberry looks very bright, but in small quantities, I thought that it went along with the darker pink that's in the pattern papers. Over to the left of the mat I'm working on, you can see some punched borders. I made those using a Martha Stewart border punch, and I'm going to use those on the top and the bottom of the layout. I used some smooth plain white cardstock to make those borders, and I'm inking the edges of those as well. Now that everything is all inked and cut out, I'm going to start assembling all these pieces. I also add some doilies from my stash. I use 3 different size doilies, and they're all a little different. I like that about them. I think that it adds a little bit of interest to the layout. So now I'm mounting those circles on the doilies. I'm using ATG adhesive, and I'm trying to be very careful because you may know that if you work with doilies, they are very fragile and you really can't do too much repositioning because the paper is so thin and they often tear. I'm thinking now that I have the doilies attached to the circles that some of the circles might be a little bit too big, but for right now I'm leaving them as is, and I'm going to create a border for the top and the bottom. So I'm using 2 pieces of striped paper, pattern paper, and I'm attaching the punched out border to the top. And I'm piecing the border together because I didn't have a 12-inch strip handy, but I knew that both on the top and the bottom, part of the border would be covered by the circles, so I didn't worry too much about it, and I just planned on piecing the border together. I attached the circle on the bottom of the layout so that part of it was hanging over the edge, and then I cut that part of the circle off. And then I'm going to do the same thing with that smaller circle on the side. I trim a little bit of the edge off, and then I'm going to do the same thing for this largest circle. Before I do that, though, I'm going to assemble the border that goes at the top of the layout. I attach the border to the top, and then I'm going to attach that largest circle on the top left as well, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to trim a little bit of it off. Now I have all of the main components of my layout in place, and I'm going to move on to working on the embellishments. You can see that I followed the sketch very literally in using arrows and stars and tickets on the layout. I liked the way that that looked, and I thought that I would use those shapes since I happen to have punches that punched out stars and tickets and arrows. I'm only going to have the one photo on the top, and so I have those other two circles to embellish however I choose because I don't have to worry about covering up the photo. This sketch really represents what I love about 30 Days of Sketches. I don't think I would have chosen to use this sketch if I had just been flipping through sketches, but I really love this sketch. It's definitely not my usual style, and I really like that about it. I think it's a different way of thinking about breaking up the page. Originally, I thought that this title, Memories, this is from a pack of Momenta titles. I thought that this would be a good title for this layout. It goes with pretty much any layout, and I thought it was a good color. I attempted to use some Distress Oxide to make it blend in with the other pinks that are on the layout, but in the end, I didn't end up using the title. I just felt that there was a little bit too much pink, and using a title of a different color would help it stand out. You can see there that I punched out a lot more stars than there are stars on the layout, and that's because I layered up some of the stars so that the stars would be a little bit thicker. And once I had several layers of the smaller stars, I layered those on top of several layers of the larger stars, and that created even more interest and more dimension. And now I'm layering and attaching together the tickets and the stars and the arrows to make at least one cluster on each of those circles. I've replaced the title Memories in pink with the title Smile that is green, and I think that that green goes perfectly with the green on this layout, and I think that having the title green definitely makes it stand out more than the pink title. You may know that the 49 and Market paper packs come with sheets of punch-out die cuts, so I was looking at those sheets and I saw that there were some butterflies that were black and white, and I thought that those would be a good match for this page since there's already so much pink and I didn't want to introduce another color, so I thought that the black and white would look nice on this layout and I would add those butterflies to the clusters that are already there. For the circle on the bottom, I decided that that cluster had enough elements in it and the butterfly was rather large, so that butterfly is on its own and separated from the other cluster that's on that circle. I'm using some foam. This is fun foam. This is adhesive on one side, and I'm using it to pop up the wings of the butterflies, and I like the way this comes. I do this on almost all layouts where I use butterflies because I really like when butterflies have a little bit of dimension. Even though the title was a sticker, I really didn't think that it was going to stay in place, so I added some extra adhesive to the back of it. I love to add pearls to this border strip, so I'm adding some pearls on the top and the bottom. That punch has a spot in the middle. It's a little hole, and that little hole is just calling out for me to add a pearl to it. And another thing I love to add pearls to is the centers of butterflies. So for the larger butterfly, I'm just piecing together some of the pearls, some of the individual pearls that are on this sticker sheet that I'm holding. For the smaller butterflies, I'm going to use one of the individual pearls at the top to represent, I guess, its head, and then the rest of the pearls are going to be strips of pearls. I have these very long strips of very tiny pearls, and so I cut those into pieces and I layer those on there, and I use some glue to make sure that they stay down. I wanted to add something to the centers of the stars, and I felt that I'd used enough pearls in the centers of things on this layout, so I was thinking that some green jewels might look nice, and I do like that little extra pop of green, so I put these green jewels that I got from Michael's quite a while ago in the centers of all of the stars that are on the layout. On the medium-sized circle on the right, there's a green flower, and that came from the sheet that had the titles on it, and it had a jewel in the middle that I didn't like. Not that I didn't like the jewel, but it wasn't the right color for the layout, so I just put a self-adhesive pearl right on top of that. I thought it would look pretty to add some embellishments to the doilies. Since all the doilies are different, I thought that I would use a different but similar embellishment on each of the doilies. On the largest doily, I used some little flower embellishments. On the medium-sized circle, I use some heart embellishments, and then on the smallest one, I use some round embellishments. They're all pearl colored, but they are all, of course, different shapes. I used regular gel glue to glue these down, and that was a mistake. I think that I should have used some heavy-duty gel medium right from the start. I ended up going back and reattaching some of them with the gel medium. It's just a stronger adhesive and it's better suited for these flat back embellishments. Whenever I feel that a layout isn't quite complete, I always think to add either flowers or branches or leaves. And in this case, I was thinking that some leaves would be a good choice for further embellishing this layout. So I cut out 3 sets of leaves. This is using an Alinacutle die from AliExpress. That store makes original designs, and I quite like this leaf die. I think that it's a really nice one. It didn't have a name on it or anything else that identified it, but like I said, I got it from Alinacutle on AliExpress. Right before I added my photo, I realized that the pink pattern paper is upside down. And at first I thought I could just leave it like that, but then it started to become obvious to me that there was a lot of text on it and all of that text would be upside down and I couldn't peel up all the doilies or they would rip, so I decided that I was just going to turn the whole layout upside down. The only thing that I had to rotate was the butterflies, the leaves, and a couple of other embellishments such as the title. As I was making all of these changes, I lost one of the arrows that I punched out. It was supposed to go on the bottom right-hand cluster, and it was the same color pink as some of the flowers in the background paper, so it was lost there for a while until I finally found it a few days later and put it back. I ended up putting it in the cluster that is to the left of the photo. Here are the punches that I used to create this layout. I thought I would just show them to you in case you wanted to see them. And that completes this layout. Here are some close-ups. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video. I really appreciate it and I really hope that you enjoyed it. Please take a look in the description box. You'll find links to the channels of all the scrapbookers who are participating in 30 Days of Sketches and also all of the ladies who collaborate on a Punched Out Thursday to Die For. There's just so much inspiration this month and so many videos to watch. I hope that you have the opportunity to check a whole bunch of them out. I will see you again soon for another 30 Days of Sketches and Punched Out Thursday to Die For. Take care. Bye-bye.